Have you ever worked on a project with your life on the line? Because that's basically what I did in the second half of June, as June 19th marks the beginning of a game jam with a premise that was anything but simple: to change the future of game development as we know it. And there was no debating it either. It was globally and unanimously agreed that this would be the most important historical event of all time. Universities and colleges all across the world gave their students a break from 19th through the 26th just to make sure they wouldn't be ruining the lives of their students by not allowing them to attend this game jam. Tears, sweat, blood, and probably many other bodily liquids were shed during these past few weeks, but not a single person that shed them regrets it. Welcome to a devlog about my submission to the very serious Juniper Dev Game Jam. If I happen to look like any other game dev YouTubers right now, it is purely coincidental. They must just be very serious, just like me. During my first ever game jam, I dedicated the day before the game jam started to figuring out just how good I was at blitzing the game creation process. And what I found was that I was incredibly competent. In just 11 hours, I managed to make this game, which to this day, I'm very proud of. Now that I knew that I am a pretty quick game developer, this time I dedicated my time to figuring out how quickly I can make songs, because just like last time, this was going to be a solo submission where I worked on everything alone. And what I found was that I'm really bad at making songs fast, but this little time that I spent making this one song really paid off, because the things that I ended up learning I think really helped me in the actual song creation process during the actual jam. But anyways, what was the theme? I hear you violently yelling at your screen. Calm down. The theme was revealed in this very serious video where Juniper Dev shows us how hard it is to slide down a slide as an adult. And aren't they like supposed to be slippery so that you can go down them easily? Why is it so hard to slide down them sometimes? Like really, does it have something to do with what you're wearing? Does it have something to do with what you weigh? Do slides just magically know when you're not a kid and they just go, no, 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 no?
Brother, get to the point.
What's that sound? Oh, right. The theme was spin to win. And I'm not gonna lie, I was instantly very disappointed by the theme, because there's a big overlap between the theme of this game jam and the theme of GMTK Game Jam 2025. Because even during the brainstorming process, a lot of the ideas that I wrote down were similar to the ideas that I was writing down during that game jam. Very disappointing theme in that sense, but other than that, it was enjoyable thinking about things that could spin, because I enjoy spinning. Okay. Unfortunately, my friend Sheriff was not available to join this game jam with me, so I had to get a little more creative with my brainstorming session. And yes, in case you're wondering, because Sheriff failed to join this game jam, he was expelled from his university and has been barred from every programming event ever for the next 2 years. But hey, I don't feel bad for him whatsoever. He should have just joined the game jam. I thought about every single friend that I could reasonably invite that would actually bring value to the brainstorming session, and even though I invited about 4 people at the end, only 2 managed to show up. For 20 minutes, we stayed muted to not influence each other's ideas, and we just wrote down whatever ideas we had. After those 20 minutes, we unmuted and discussed those ideas and slowly dwindled the ideas down to 15, then 8, then 3, and eventually to 1. At that point, we started discussing that one idea, we added a bunch of details, and yeah, we had something beautiful at the end. Now, the game idea that we settled on has a bit of a twist in it, so if you don't want to be spoiled on that twist, now is the time to pause the video, go to the link in the description, and you can play that game, and then you can return to the video if you'd like. My friend's idea ended up winning the brainstorming session, and even though it developed quite a lot, it started off pretty simple. You're stuck in a room with a wheel that has deadly consequences. One thing led to another, and eventually it developed into, you are a part of a game show, you're trying to win $1 million, but uh-oh, you didn't know losing meant death. The idea is that sometimes the wheel would land on a minigame, and when a minigame would trigger, the first person to lose in that minigame would end up losing one of their limbs, and at some point, they would obviously die. I decided that the wheel itself would not have any consequences or punishments for the player, because I hate to take any control away from the player. The only time the player should be losing limbs or dying is when they lose a minigame because of their skill issue. I was also planning to add this cute little detail that I never added, where if a contestant lost their dominant hand, they would get a bigger disadvantage than if they lost their non-dominant hand. I was gonna make a whole wheel that determined the contestants' punishments, but to make the game shorter, to give myself less sprites to draw, and to also make the game easier to program, I ended up deciding on a 3-strike system instead. First, you would lose the forearm of your non-dominant arm, then you would lose your whole non-dominant arm, and then you die. To pay tribute to the dominant arm feature that I was going to add into the game, that obviously never made it into the game because of how the 3-strike system ended up being, I made it so that one of the contestants, Mary, loses her right arm instead of her left arm because she is left-handed. Not that this is mentioned in the game, but the way that the host knows who is left-handed and who is right-handed is because the contestants had to take a quiz right before the show where one of the questions was which one of your hands is the dominant one. To make the game even faster, I ended up cutting out one of the contestants. This gave me less sprites to draw, this gave me less dialogue to write, and overall it also made the game a lot quicker. Even then, the game is still pretty long for a Game Jam game, so I think I made the right choice there. But an Easter egg, or a tribute, you could say, that I left for him is that I named Mary's son Harry, even though Mary's son is a lot younger than the contestant was going to be. Another thing I did to make the game faster is make it so that at least one minigame is mandatory every spin cycle, which means if during a spin cycle the wheel never lands on yellow, which is the tile for minigames, a minigame is forced before the next spin cycle begins. I was initially going to do 4 different minigames, but due to the time restrictions, I only had time for 1. Honestly, if I properly locked in and actually did my best, I'm sure I would have pumped out another one, but not gonna lie, I wasn't really feeling myself this jam. I largely blame this on the fact that I kept the brainstorming team that I made around for feedback and morale, but they were doing such a horrible job that it kind of did the exact opposites of what it was supposed to. I probably wasted like 8 hours yapping in that group chat, and I didn't even have any fun doing it. The first day of the jam was completely dedicated to just kind of sketching things and making the general skeleton of the game, not in code, not in art, but in mind. For the second day, I started working on the dialogue box, and the dialogue box is actually borrowed from my previous Game Jam project, and during that Game Jam project, I borrowed that from an even more previous project. But don't worry, I didn't just grab the dialogue box and plop it in. I had to spend an entire day adding features to it that I wanted and customizing it in a way that it actually fit this game. But of course, grabbing it from my previous project helped in saving some time. I also spent the second day making some sprites for the characters so that I could place them in the dialogue box and see how everything looked. I will say, in case the dialogue box and the way that I drew my characters makes you curious, yes, this game was very heavily, stylistically, inspired by Your Turn to Die. The third day was spent doing a lot more dialogue stuff. This time I actually started writing dialogues. I started drawing more of the sprites that I needed for the dialogue boxes, and I also made this beautiful background, which I'm still very proud of. Just look at it. I would like you to love it quite a lot. I would like you to cherish it. I would like you to be like, wow, March, you did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. The fourth day was spent setting up the studio scene and getting the wheel to spin properly. And I was pretty obsessed with making this as pretty as I could. So the wheel actually consists of 3 layers. There's the bottom layer, which is just a circle. Then you have the middle layer, which is just a square of the colors that the wheel consists of. And then you have the top layer, which is the stuff that doesn't really move. I used the foundation as a mask for the middle layer, and then I just rotate the middle layer, and this is how it looks. Pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty epic. I was very happy with the solution that I came up with. Also, the ring around the studio also spins, if you didn't notice that, so isn't that cool? I love spinning. Here's a fun challenge I had to do during the 4th day. 360 divided by 12, which is the number of tiles we have on this wheel, comes out to 30 degrees. So every 30 degrees we land on a new color. However, Let's say that the wheel is at the rotation of 29 degrees right now. Here, it is clear that we have entered the next color, but the program would consider this as still being on the previous color. Whoa. How do you fix that? Isn't it obvious? You just give it an offset, so it actually starts being that color a little earlier. In case you're curious, and in case this somehow helps you at some point, the offset that I needed to give it was 3 degrees. So at 27, it already counts it as the next color, and the 3-degree offset works perfectly from like the gazillion games I've watched people play. The 5th day was especially fun because I got to make the mini game, and you have no clue how much fun I had with this. I got to make these hula hoops go up and down. It was so much fun coding this into the game, and the sprites are also so incredibly adorable. I mean, look at them. Look at Jude. So cute. The 6th day was spent coding in the punishments. This incredible scene of how the contestants lose arms. I've been glazed over this quite a lot. This just popped into my mind, and I think I did a great job visually representing exactly what came to my mind with this scene. It is so cool. And then the 7th day was spent making sound effects and music. I only ended up making one song for this game, and it was for the mini games, but I think it ended up really good, especially for the short time that I spent on it. As I said, that little training that I did one day before the jam was super useful in teaching me skills that I used for this song. And I'm sure you want to hear how it sounds since I'm glazing it so much. Let me show you. Oh, never mind. You're just gonna have to go. You're just gonna have to go and play the game yourself if you want to listen to the music. Yo, they should add that. The game would go viral. Hi, I'm from the future when the Game Jam rating process has actually concluded. And I'm not happy, Bob. I'm not happy. I did rank pretty poorly, but that is not necessarily what I am upset about. It's just that none of my favorite games made it to the top of the jam. And also, the way that I ranked makes absolutely no sense to me. My game had a very clear, serious aspects to it, yet, in the context of the jam, it was incredibly uncreative. Yet, both in creativity and in seriousness, I got the exact same score. And the amount of 1-star reviews I got is absolutely astonishing. I expected my game to hover around 3 to 4 stars, but the star distribution was so incredibly even from the looks of it, that I don't think it's ridiculous to assume people were literally just closing their eyes and randomly clicking on the stars. Overall, my ranking is 1079, which puts me in the 69.44 percentile, or in other words, according to this jam, I am better than 2 out of every 3 game developer, which in my opinion is absolutely horrible. Now, I'm very disappointed in my submission to this jam, so I wouldn't say that rating is completely inaccurate, but there is a lot to critique when it comes to the rating system of this particular jam. In the last jam I participated, developers got to rate each other's games as much as they wanted to. However, anyone who wasn't a developer and wanted to rate the games had to randomly play the games. In this jam, however, both developers and non-developers can just come into the jam, play 3 random games, after which they have absolutely free reign to rate whatever they want. You can just invite like 10 people to play 3 random games, give them very unfavorable reviews, and then come to your game and give you all 5 stars. But then again, I'm not sure exactly what they were doing to prevent what I just explained. Maybe they were doing something, but I highly doubt you could really control that. Anywho, I got to rate 65 different games during the rating process of this jam, and there were 3,500 total, so I only really got to rate a little under 2% of all games in this jam, which means even though I'm about to give you a rundown of my top 5 favorite games, the top 5 I'm about to give you isn't even objective to my own tastes, because I didn't get to play a vast majority of the games in the jam. Maybe I missed some absolute gems. Number 5. Toss the Baby. Toss the Baby is a game where you spin and spin and then throw your baby into the road. Your objective is to get a score as high as possible by making the baby travel as much distance as possible. In the game, you have power-ups to help you throw your baby even further, and you can even get addicted to Ozempic if you want to. I know the theme of the game is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm not trying to be edgy by putting this in the 5th place. The gameplay loop of this game is just actually addictive. Number 4. Tipsy Turvy. This game only makes it into the top 5 because it had an idea that I had that I really regret not working on, and I think it's executed pretty well. In this game, you're incredibly drunk, so even though you move around with arrow or AWSD keys, the way that these keys move you around the map actually changes all the time because you're constantly spinning. Your objective is to traverse through different maps so that you can make it out of your house and into the bar where you can continue to drink milk. You are drunk on milk. Number 3, Spin the Squid. This game had such a creative idea. In this game, you play as a squid that goes around and spins things into place. Your objective every level is to make it to this little hole so that you can plop right into it. Number 2, Tiny Laundrette. In this game, you run a tiny laundrette, and the objective of the game is for you to increase your reputation to 5 stars. You can customize and market your laundrette any way you want as long as you got the coins at the beginning of the day, after which you just let the customers roll in. Once you get the hang of it, customizing the laundrette becomes so much fun that you could probably play the game forever. And number 1, Hungry Paws. In this game, you spin around a bunch of balls to make sure that every dog in the pack is fed. That's it. And you might be asking, how did that make it into the number 1 spot for you, March? And I can't explain it. You just gotta go and play it. The game is so addictive, you could genuinely play it for hours. I will leave the links to my top 5 in the description, so if any of these games are interesting to you, you can check them out and play them as much as you want. And yeah, that's wraps. You know how hot it is right now? And this is what I'm wearing? These are the things I do for this jam. From the feedback I have received about the game, as well as just my experience with my game and other games in this jam, I have 2 complaints in regards to my game. Complaint number 1. Due to the fact that the game only has 1 minigame, the game gets boring very quickly. Now, yes, I didn't have enough time to make more minigames, but that's not an excuse. When I cut out the other 3 minigames from the game, I should have thought about the fact that the game would get more boring. I should have done something to prevent the game from getting boring. And as a game developer, I failed to do that. Complaint number 2. My game is not creative at all. Now, this isn't a complaint I have received from anyone else. This is something I think about my game myself. The plot has been compared to Danganronpa. The style is, as I've said, heavily inspired by Your Turn to Die, and even the way that I fit the theme around my game is very uncreative. Every second game had a spinning wheel, and I found multiple submissions that were also TV shows. I didn't do a good job of being creative here, as much as I pride myself in being creative. The highlight of the jam for me so far has been how I made a really stupid joke in Juniper Dev's Discord server in Jam General, and my joke got pinned in the channel. That has certainly been my highlight of this jam. With that said, in the last video I said that my next video would be me making a chess bot, but I'm sorry, I kind of had to participate in this game jam. It was sort of life or death. Thank you to my friends who helped me brainstorm ideas for the game and also provided sound effects to use for the sounds of the characters. Thank you to the game developers who reviewed my submission and left feedback. Thank you to Juniper Dev for hosting the game jam, and thank you for watching the video to the very end. You can join my Discord server. There's a link in the description, I'm sure. And if you like this video, you can like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video where I'll make a chess bot that can swim. Whatever that means. Bye!